Thanks for your support as a channel member, Knight! After last week's race in Texas, I said the championship fight was over, but following last night's race in Mexico, perhaps that's changed. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new reaction video following the 2024 Mexico City Grand Prix, won brilliantly by Ferrari's Carlos Sainz. Another smooth operation from the Spaniard, his fourth career win, arguably his best, and it was almost back-to-back 1-2 finishes for Ferrari for the first time since 2008. Is my understanding of that stat, but it wasn't, because Charles Leclerc slid off the track with a few laps to go, and that handed second place to Lando Norris in the McLaren, and a crucial moment really for the championship battle. It brings Norris to 47 points adrift of Max Verstappen after yet more controversy between the two title protagonists. We're going to go through Sainz's victory, we're going to go through Norris's result and what that means for the championship. We're going to touch on Verstappen's race and how he stopped Lando Norris winning this race. I think that's the key thing that we need to take away from this, is Verstappen's antics did their job, and I'll talk about that later on. We'll talk about Haas because they were fantastic. We'll do our alternate driver of the day, and I will rate the race. So let's get straight into things. Carlos Sainz, I think that's his best win, because yes, he was brilliant in Singapore last year on his way to victory, managing the tyres, but that's a very unique circuit. It's tricky to overtake there. It's not easy to overtake in Mexico, but it's definitely easier than it is in Singapore. And also, he lost the lead on the opening lap, spent a few laps behind Verstappen under the safety car, and it looked like Verstappen was about to get away when we got back up to green flag running. But the Dutchman ran out of battery power, and Sainz seized his opportunity. He just dived down the inside into turn one, seizing the bull by the horns, to coin a phrase, and absolutely took it. He never lost the lead thereafter, and just exemplary driving. He wasn't happy with the speed that Ferrari were asking him to run at. I think he was just cautious of the brakes getting too hot, the tyres getting too hot, and just running out of grip at the end, because I think he knew the threat from behind was Lando's McLaren. But Carlos is a brilliant driver. The fact that he's not going to be in a top team next season is borderline criminal, because he has shown time and time again, not only can he win when the opportunity is there for him, but he's a very, very, very capable sort of, I don't want to use the phrase wingman, but deputy sort of, he is absolutely what you need. If you're going to win a Constructors' Championship, let's say Leclerc is leading the drivers, Carlos Sainz is your guy. He's a bit like Bottas. He'll win when he needs to, when he's on his day, basically. But he will keep scoring those podiums and enough points to tick over the score, keep the pressure on everybody else, and make sure that your team is in a strong position. Obviously, Ferrari couldn't turn down the opportunity to sign Lewis Hamilton. Who does that? Honestly, you don't turn down the opportunity to sign statistically the greatest to ever do it at this point in time when you're Ferrari. It's a red letter day in terms of sales and merchandise. It's just the two most iconic brands coming together. But Carlos is such an unfortunate party in this, and we've said it all season, but he's just underscored it with this performance. I think the way he drove was just fantastic. He managed everything perfectly, but it goes back to qualifying as well. He put in 2 laps that were good enough for pole position. Don't often see that. His first run was 3.5 tenths quicker than his teammate. And Charles Leclerc, I think, for my money, is the best qualifier on the grid right now. Obviously, the car has to be up to it, but I would have expected Leclerc to be ahead of Sainz in terms of raw one-lap pace. But that shows you where Sainz was this weekend. He came in off the back of a good performance in Texas, and he really wanted to make a statement. And I'm so glad that he got that big moment before he left Ferrari and goes to Williams for 2025. Lewis Hamilton got it with McLaren in 2012. Others haven't been so fortunate. I remember, David Coulthard getting biffed out of his final race in 2008 before he retired. So it doesn't always go the way you want it, but it's so nice. It was a popular win. There was a brief moment where I said to my wife when we were watching, if Lando gets into second, I kind of want Sainz to break down a little bit so that Lando maximises his championship points gain over Verstappen. And then he had like the misfire. I was like, oh, I feel like I've cursed him. But look, honestly, I think Carlos Sainz is a fantastic driver. He's criminally underrated in the Formula One sort of sphere. And I'm so glad that he did win the race. It wasn't a slight against him that I wanted him to break down. It's just, the championship picture. You're torn between a rock and a hard place there. It's a fantastic win. Let me know if you think that it's also his best win, or if maybe his Australia win from earlier in the year or his Singapore victory last season were better. Let's talk of Lando Norris back in the hunt now. I think just about 47 points. It's 12 points around. We've got 2 sprint weekends coming up in Brazil and Qatar to deal with. Brazil is a place where anything can happen. It can rain, you can get safety cars, you can get accidents. And if Verstappen and Red Bull aren't on song, they can find themselves potentially behind several cars and in the danger zone. We're going to talk about Haas, but they've been quick recently. And if they're quick in Brazil and Red Bull aren't, they could be a problem for the Milton Keynes-based team. But Lando Norris did basically everything he could. And I think on another day he wins this race. And I'll talk about that shortly. But this second place, very important. He finished ahead of Verstappen. Obviously, it comes off the back of what happened last week in America. So important to sort of readdress the momentum, get themselves back in front. I think he'll be disappointed that he didn't get on the front row, and also then not having been on the front row didn't choose the right path down to turn 1. I think he could have been on the outside. Maybe he could have scooted past Sainz, although Sainz was going off the track, so he would have had to give up the place to Verstappen only, I would suppose. So maybe he would have ended up P3 anyway. But maybe he might look back and think I could have done a little bit more at the start to potentially get myself up the order. But very important points scored, and it came after controversy, didn't it? And I think we have to start sort of last week. A precedent was set. Basically, you can't overtake off the track, and these dive bomb-esque moves are kind of a grey area. No one really seems to know how to police them. So let's start with this week's incident. Going into turn 4, Lando fully alongside Verstappen, completely aware that Lando was there. And I hate this guidelines of where the front axle needs to be. I also do need to caveat it with, these cars are incredibly difficult to see out the side of. The drivers are buried, the headrests are all around them. It's very difficult. The mirrors aren't worth their name. So it's tricky to judge where your car is, but this is where I say, let's all be sensible. Leave a little bit of space, because we saw 2 cars can get round those corners where turns 4 and 5. There was a little bit of contact between Lawson and Perez, but they both got round the corners without forcing each other completely off track. So it is doable. I just think Verstappen, in those moments where he is losing sort of the grip of his race and the potential championship victory, he just loses his head. He just loses his head. It all becomes too much for him. And look, this goes back to 2021 where it wasn't policed properly. Essentially, he got away with it. They didn't stamp out this driving. They could have, set a precedent then. I think now we're finally seeing, actually, it's not just the pressure of the time. It is the pressure of the title battle, but Verstappen pushes the rules as far as they will go, and he'll go further to try and get it in his favour. And that's exactly what happened. He forced Lando off the track at turn 4. Lando gave the position up to Sainz, having gone off the track, and he correctly stayed in front of Verstappen, because the stewards would have let that slide had Verstappen not lunged down the inside at turn 8, which, for me, a world champion level driver, which Max Verstappen is, should not be resorting to that. It harks back to Michael Schumacher, and I hated Schumacher for it, and I'm disgusted with Verstappen. Look, this is going to sound like Verstappen bashing again. It's not. It is criticising that move. Verstappen is a magnificent driver. We've seen him pull out fantastic laps. On Saturday, he pulled out a second place on the grid when that Red Bull car probably didn't deserve to be there. He made a great start. Last week in COTA, his defending was masterful until he forced Norris off the road. That's the thing I have a problem with. He's the only one that seems to be doing this, and whether you say the rules can allow it or not, they're so sort of convoluted and grey. I mean, they're guidelines and they're trying to make it black and white, but it's so difficult to enforce. Unless you're going to draw a line on the track, like the DRS line, for where the apex of the corner is, and whoever gets to that line first has control of the corner, what are you going to do? But then if you did that, the driver on the inside, because they have a shorter distance, they will always get there first, unless the driver around the outside just sends it, goes wide, comes back on. You know, there's so many different sort of messy solutions to this. I think the best solution is you must leave space for drivers to stay on track, like keep two wheels on, like the track limits. And it infuriates the hell out of me because it's not nice. It looks ridiculous. These are supposed to be the best drivers, and if they're resorting to forcing each other off the track and lunging each other, that's not high quality sport. That's a free-for-all. Let's be honest. Do we want to watch that? No, because that's when someone's going to get hurt. And let's be honest, no one wants to see that, do they? So, yeah, but Verstappen's antics slowed Norris down. He got himself ahead of Lando, didn't give up the position. He took the 20-second penalty, but he cost Lando something like 15 seconds to Sainz, and there was just too much to overcome in the end. Had Verstappen not made that lunge into turn 8 while given the position back, Lando would have won the race. He showed in the second half of the race he had the fastest car. He was the fastest driver on track yesterday, and he would have won the Mexico City Grand Prix. As it was, he had to settle for second. So job done, big tick in the box for Verstappen. He's done enough to rein in the points loss to Norris on this occasion, but if Red Bull are struggling again in the future races, then we might see potentially more controversy, but we may see more momentum built up by Norris. I think this will just about get to Abu Dhabi. If Lando finishes ahead of Max in all of the races before that, I think we'll get to Abu Dhabi. But it's going to be a tricky road to get it there. He's got to be within 26 points, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, 26 points would even give Verstappen the title on countback, so he needs to be 25 less behind. So yeah, job done in that respect for Verstappen. And finally, before we go on, must talk about Haas. Brilliant job in the last few races. Magnussen and Hülkenberg both in the points, and to be honest, we never really saw them because they were just doing a good job. And Haas are a team that have been ridiculed and maligned for being underfunded, the owner Gene Haas not being interested, but Aya Komatsu has done a brilliant job in turning that ship around. And for a team that was saying at the start of the season, we're going to be last, actually they're going to finish 6th in the championship. That is a very, very good effort, so credit where credit's due to Haas and the team there. Let's get on to the alternate driver of the day. I believe the driver of the day was Lando Norris, but I'm going to give mine to Kevin Magnussen. Look, I've criticised the Dane before, both on here and in private, and I thought his ban for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix was absolutely spot on. He'd earned it, so he had to sit out. That's the way the rules work. But today, credit where credit's due, and also in Texas, he was very, very good. So well done to Kevin Magnussen. He beat his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, and I'm going to rate the race. Controversy aside, it was slightly dull. That's Mexico for you. They can't follow particularly closely because everything gets too hot because of the altitude. So yeah, you're never really going to get a frantic race at the front like you might at other circuits. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It had enough from early on to keep you interested. Could Lando catch the Ferraris? He caught one, but it's another stepping stone, another chapter in the story of this World Championship. Obviously, let me know who your alternate driver of the day was. Rate the race as well, and let me know if this was Carlos Sainz's best career victory so far. That's all for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Give the video a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. You're the best fans. Bye for now.